going on today? We are back with This Week in the House of Fraud. As always, I'm joined by Jordan, and I'm Brian. What's happening today?
Just trying to get back in the swing of things, get caught up on work. I was on a little mini vacation in Lake Havasu, doing some boating. Uh, it was 117 degrees, but it didn't feel
Yeah,
like
it
it.
gets hot
So
out there.
yeah, a little warm. But I'm back now, getting caught up, catching up on all that I missed, which wasn't a whole lot in the overall world. But in House of Fraud, it looks like it was a little bit of a busier house this week. So yeah, let's talk about it.
I think it's the ebbs and flows of summer vacation and consistency of that. Like it's holiday season, people are out and people take time off. But I think the one that stood out, and we actually had a masterclass on this a couple months ago, but the topic came up of like a scam. It's a picture of an image of like communication going on of like, hey, what is the end play here? And we had a lot of people hop on to this one of like walking through what it is. So for the people that obviously can't see this, someone started to receive text messages and turned WhatsApp messages about jobs. So the individual kind of played it out to kind of see like, all right, what are they thinking? Where is this gonna go? So anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think it's, as regular credit card fraud prevention as an industry, we've gotten pretty good at slowing people's roll on that, especially more sophisticated sites, more mature sites. I mean, startups probably it was less of a concern, so those could still be a big target. But for the overall industry, like we've gotten pretty good at stopping credit card fraud. And I think that that's where over the last couple of years we see things move to scams. Now, romance scams, the huge resurgence of that. Um, and then medical record scams, but then these non-traditional scams. When I was reading one of the reports, like the Revolut report, it said like how the massive increase was these job scams. It was a number one particular fraud vector increase was job scams, and it made me think, what is the goal of that? And I think a lot of the comments on here were very correct with probably what this was, where eventually, it's two ways you can go. They're trying to get PII from you so they can do something else later with it, open credit, whatever, steal your identity, or they're just trying to get you to pay something for their fake job. Download crypto scams, whatever it may be, buy something, download an app, buy crypto. But it seems like more like one of those, okay, we've got you through, you're the right fit for the job, but now we need to send us $1,200 so we can send you, your uniform, get you access, blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah. And that seems like what really they are. And I guess if you're using like, Chat GPT to do these responses, like it doesn't seem super lucrative to me, but $1,200 in Bangladesh is a little more than $1,200 in Orange County, California. So,
Well,
you
you're
know,
also thinking of the scale that they're probably operating at. So it's like it's a volume game as well. The individual who ran the masterclass a couple of months ago walked us through this and actually saw it through to take down one of these websites. So the from the communication that was shared this week, it can go a couple of the different angles that you mentioned. It wasn't totally clear. It could operate in a couple of those paths of like what direction it really turns. But going back to the masterclass, they saw it all the way out where they signed up, create a profile. They walk through like how you do this. It's not advised that you just do it on all of your software. This is a person who
I'm sure
specializes
they
in
had a
actually
synthetic
taking.
identity to use for this. I'm sure they had like machines that were meant for this. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. So if you want to learn more about how to actually do this properly and safely, that's another topic and discussion within here. But for this one, they saw it all the way through of signing up for the job, the tasks. If you do this, you earn money. And the more tasks you do, the more money you earn. And the individual who did this took the screenshots and kind of walked through the different flows, the person he was communicating with, comparing the real site to the fake site, what are similar, what are hard to understand, what is very obviously different if you were to compare. But this is a person who specializes in this. Not everyone, even within fraud, specializes in these things. So we've talked about this before. You get caught up on a bad day, you get caught up on a distracted day, you're tired, a lot is happening, you respond or click something by accidentally. Just because you work in fraud doesn't mean you are immune. So this one then walks all the way through of how it went to, I have all this money on the site. I now need to do
Mm.
something for them to withdraw my funds, send a fee, pay the fee, upload bank account information. There's a couple different tactics again where it could be, are they just trying to get your money? Or are they trying to get PII information from you sharing because you've worked so hard? The money appears to be earning by the tasks that you're doing. The platform, the admin platform is working, functioning well, but there are, again, still at the end of that, a couple different plays of how it could really pan out versus uploading information to withdraw the information, but then you just submitted your routing and account number, they have your
Yeah.
information, your address, a whole lot of PII, or the other route of, hey, pay this fee and you'll withdraw it. You pay your fee, $100, $1,000, whatever it may be, and then you never hear from them again. And then your account's locked and you're locked out of the portal. That person stopped communicating with you, and now you're out money.
Have you ever heard of Upside, another app? Um, it's like a cashback app, cashback for like groceries and food and
I
gas is the
think so.
primary one.
Let me take a
So,
look at that one. Yeah,
um, my neighbor uses it religiously, like everywhere. Like he'll drive miles to get the extra like 10 cents, 20 cents, a gallon in the Upside app. Now, granted, he had hundreds of dollars in there when I was with him in golfing in Las Vegas the other day. And I was like, oh, I'm like, that's pretty cool. But I did have the question, have you ever cashed out from this before? Because that is the same thing as like, yeah, you have all those hundreds of dollars of funny money in here, but what do I got to do to get it out of there? Do you have to
yeah.
submit your routing number? Can you go through Plaid? Do you got to pay $100 to get 300 out? Like, what do you have to do? Is there a percentage? And he said he's got it out. And then, I mean, I was over swimming at his house probably the last weekend, and he
You're
was
a
like
busy
putting
guy.
together like a new little shed. Yeah, like, I'm always active, always active. Um, but he was putting together a shed, and I was like, "Where'd you get that?" And he's like, "All that Upwork money. I finally cashed it out." I'm like, "Okay." It worked out, but I will
Upside.
say, or upside. I'm like, but because I looked at the app, he was like showed it to me. I'm like, this app looks like, remember first gen iPhone apps with the big buttons, everything was kind of gray, looked like that. The bad fonts, kind of pixelated. So I was like, ooh, okay, good luck. But he's got an upside now. He's got a shed, so there's that. But I mean, look, even NerdWallet talks about it, I guess. So
They've been
it's a
around. Like once I looked at the website, I remember the logo. I remember, I think they might have started with gas savings only and kind of like the referral network affiliate network there, but they've been around for a bit. They at least haven't been taken down.
I mean, I guess I should try and do it, like, because I shop at some of these places and I already get cash back through the credit cards. So why not double up my cash back?
Double dip.
Yeah, Well, I guess we'll give it a shot. Um, I will say, like, on the trip that I did do when I just went to Havasu, obviously I drove because you can't fly an airplane to Havasu, which sucks. Um, I was super happy to see every gas station that I used along the route had Apple Pay enabled. So I felt a lot more secure about getting fuel uh, this trip than I have on
I
recent
I
trips.
built into the habit. I'm always checking the
You pull on it?
yeah, to see if it wiggles or anything, or if there's
Uh,
tape that's been destroyed. I always find myself now doing that. If they don't have Apple Pay, like I know my gas station at least locally of which ones have Apple Pay and or Tap Pay, and I'm going there more often than
yeah,
not. And one, convenience, ease. I don't like taking things out of my pocket,
yeah.
and I'm lazy. But
I have every card in there. Like I hit my Costco card. I bring up tap, boop, bring up the
yep,
thing, go to the Costco card because it's 4% cash back on gas from the Costco deal monies. Boom, off I go every time. It's nice, and I don't have
so
to. You
really,
know what? And you don't have to carry that card with you. Oh, bro, I'm a now. I got this card's used here. This card's used here. This one's used here. Yeah, maximizing cash back.
look
Except
at you
for
go.
Chase Sapphire Reserve turned off the 25% boost on pay yourself back on groceries. And that sucks because I was like 25% boost on points, on groceries. I got to buy groceries anyway.
Every week anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? What else you got going on? What else is happening in your fraud world? I have
Trying to
another
see
one. You
what.
know what?
Go
I
ahead.
have one more thing. Sorry. I have one more thing about the what are they up to? Like, what is the end game? Actually, an
Okay.
old guest from my show came on and was like, I'm getting all these iHeard packages. Well, her friend was getting all these iHeard packages shipped to their address. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a mule account. Maybe they're trying to run by and get them. They have a name. We found the actual person. They don't live anywhere near this person. All the information looks correct. All the payment information looks correct. This one, we actually don't know what they're doing, and they've never lived at that house before. We can't figure out. It is not traditional mule activity. Um, so I don't know if they had like an old address stored in their system and they just were auto shipping to it or what. But like, I can't figure out a reason why this one is doing it, and it's 3D secure, liability shifted. So who cares? You know?
Call to the audience. What's happening? Help Jordan out
Yeah.
here.
Put it in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You know, hit the bell. All of that. Actually, you should do that anyways. Everybody, it helps us out.
So yeah, the other thing that I do want to talk about is kind of revive. I think it's a little bit of like it's starting to be budget season. It's starting to be
Mm,
planning season. So people are thinking about like how do I set up my team to be invested in? How do I set up my team to be supported? And it kind of goes back to like okay, it rolls up to OKRs of like business planning for depending on what your calendar year is. Let's just say you start on 1/1. It's now about the time when people are starting to get those going because if you've worked mid up, you realize how many phases and cycles and reviews go into this that a lot of this people are probably have kicked it off or are kicking it off very soon with the OKRs, which then rolls into kind of like in parallel budget season of what tools do different teams need, what teams are requesting headcount, where can we actually give headcount, where do we prioritize headcount. So it all kind of starts of like OKRs of how do I set my team up for success? How do I really position it? Like, what should my OKRs be? One from a team, and then two on an individual basis, especially if you are an IC and you roll up. Like, how do you set yourself up of like to make it seem challenging enough to push
yeah.
yourself that you're not just an underperformer to check some boxes to try to collect whatever the incentive is of completing your OKRs. Structure of that kind of depends on the company in itself, but OKRs is definitely a topic in itself, and that's a was a cool post to see revived, and we'll be doing a I guess when this comes out, we have just completed a roundtable. So getting an open roundtable, getting the community together and kind of just talking about it, taking kind of a lot of the thoughts that have come from the post in itself and actually bringing people together about it and talking a little bit deeper on some of that. But the OKRs is something that is definitely top of mind of a lot of people. And I really like to see how different people think.
Yeah.
And I think the I know we talk about this almost like we talked about this on like buying fraud tools, but different industries bring in kind of like a different perspective of how they prioritize different OKRs. Now, OKRs as a whole, theme wise, might not be entirely different, but the prioritization of this is like our key metric versus like, hey, that wouldn't be as helpful for us as our number one North Star. But that's something on the
Yeah.
radar.
It's just always so weird because, for OKRs, it's like I said on the last time, for depending on how much you really control, like sometimes there could only be like two. Like keep chargeback rate at X, or below X. And keep authorizations or approval rates at X, authorizations if you're a payments person. Um, it just could be like I always some companies like I've worked at for several years, it's like, okay, it's OKR season. And then especially if you use Workday where you just like copy goals and OKRs from last year. And then you just copy it over and you're like, yep, same Z's. And then like you just like I feel like you try to find like other random things you could put in there that don't
I
like
got into
nobody's
that
really
rut
gonna care
at
about.
one company. I was
Yeah.
not necessarily low, but I definitely wasn't high enough to like impact like I was more rolling up to people. So getting into like their understanding where fraud's at. Like maybe this was an opportunity for me to push more on some couple different areas, but like in that exact scenario is what you just said. I didn't really have much more power control over two maybe main OKRs. And what are the two most important? It was like authorizations and chargeback rate. So outside of that, like there's a lot of tactics that can roll up into that. But for me, it was like a couple years in a row, it was just like, yep, keep it healthy,
Yeah.
keep it here.
Yeah. And it's something like, especially at hyper growth companies, like you kind of don't want fraud to be the problem in the way of the growth, like in the way of the growth. So you don't want to always take on too much because if you try to do too much at once, something could fail and you could impede that growth. I feel like that's where, like with me, we try to do like maybe one big project a year if there's even something available to do. Because if I think some people get so excited and want to do so many things all at once that
Shiny object syndrome.
yeah, a great example is like we've been employing like we don't our fraud tool sits post auth,
Mhm.
and we've been trying to decide if it's worth the juice worth the squeeze to move to pre auth, but there's some
Would
other
you keep it
factors that have
split, or like keep it pre and post, or move it
so
entirely
one of the things that we
pre?
want to do is like do a kind of a pre-check.
Mhm.
Like, Riskified calls their pre-check advise. And then you do an update call and then fill in the credit card information and see if they still want to move to sell. Um, Basically makes 2 calls. You could do a lot upfront, like, but our authorization rates are high enough that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do a pre-auth call, in my opinion. The only thing that it would save us is it would save the customers. Like, the reason that we even came up is we wanted to get more specific to customer, decline messaging, that to give them a better customer service route. So if it was fraud related, we could prompt this message. So then customer service
Yep.
team would know how to route it to us for anything specific. If it wasn't that message, then, it's got to be something else. It's like something tech related or something
So it's
account
like an
related.
OpEx play more than anything.
Yeah, 100%. And that is 100%. And that is so. What I did though is I was looking at all of these things that were the main drivers of what was leading to fraud, causing a bad customer experience. And I found an easier way where how we change account statuses. Now I'm not gonna say what that is because that's secret sauce.
Yeah.
But basically, the math is going to be about 93% reduction in customer contacts, probably related to fraud, because of this one tweak, and we don't have to do it. Now, I still have the vendor, Riskified, would like to still move forward with pre-auth, obviously, because there's more money for them.
More
But
calls. I mean, it depends on if you're
well,
listening to this, like it depends on your payment structure. Now, a lot
how
are
you
by
do it with
fees,
them,
by
and I will
events.
say they were
So
fair. They were so
take a
fair
look
that
at
they got to
that.
make up some of their fairness. But at the same time, it's like I don't need to do this because I'm gonna get probably the result. But I keep telling them, I'm like, hey guys, I have to see the results of this change and measure it before we talk about if it's still a necessary thing, And like I get that everybody wants to close out the deals, but I'm telling you that we're not going to have the results to a satisfactory level for me to make a decision for next year's cycle by the end of this year. So like that's just a thing on the table. But I think like I think it's just going to be unnecessary. I think the pre-auth businesses, I think it highly dependent on the type of product that you sell if you need to do pre-auth. Now, I think ticketing, pre-auth decisioning that needs to be there every single time. But digital goods that have a little bit of a lead time, um, and if you have your gateway configured properly to where you're doing like $0 authorizations, you're not holding full amounts, and you're doing void calls, doing a post auth, one single call can be pretty quick and easy at the end of the day. And you get all the information. You don't have to do multiple calls. The less API calls you have to do, the less things that can go wrong at the end of the
Yep,
day.
less things to break, less, because each one of those calls takes a little bit of time, even if it's a fraction of time. Something's down, bad customer experience. More calls, harder to diagnose, more more code, more bloat, more
Yeah.
legacy over time.
Yeah. And like I'm a big guy, so less bloat is always better.
Keep it lean.
Well, keep it lean. And on that, I think that is our rant time for this week. Oh wait, no, that's my show. No, that is our 20-minute tangent for this week. So
That's what it
yeah,
is. So if you want to be a part of these conversations and not just listen to them, hit apply, and we'll see you on the inside.
because no one goes to school for fraud.